Hello everyone and welcome to my Duel Giant Crusher Build guide. I am currently crushing every boss I play against in New Game Plus 3 with this build. This build relies on pumping our strength up to do jump attacks that are going to stagger the opponent as well as cause them to bleed after just a couple of jump attacks. And one of the biggest positives about this build is that it does not completely rely on bleed to do damage. That's more of just a cherry on top, so things that are immune to bleed like Elden Beast are still a breeze. So let's go ahead and hop on into it. First off, we're going to need to get a Giant Crusher. If you're not on New Game Plus, it's okay to just single-hand this, as the damage from two-handing it should be plenty on a first-run playthrough, and you may also find it hard to get your endurance up high enough to be able to wield these because these are colossal weapons. But the cool thing about this build is the weapon is located fairly early on. You can get it as soon as you make it to Altus Plateau. All you have to do is kill this ulcerated tree spirit and then run over here to this chest, and if you can get around the ulcerated tree spirit, you don't even technically have to kill it. It'd just probably be easier to do it that way. Next up, we're going to get the Dragon Communion Seal. The reason we do this is because it takes mainly like an arcane requirement. Since we are doing bleed, we're going to put some points into arcane. So this gives us a seal that we can use to buff our damage further. So we can use things like Golden Vow. So go back to the very first place that you start the game at. And when you walk by, you should have seen there was a fog wall. So go throw a Storm Soak key in there and unlock this. Now, the thing here is you just have to dodge this chariot. It's really not... It's not crazy difficult, but especially if you come in here later or like in the mid game, it shouldn't even really kill you, even if you get hit by it. Like I think I do get hit by it here in a second, but yeah, the main thing's probably just the poison, and then making sure these guys don't catch you off guard, because they put these dudes in like each of these little cubbies, I think, to try to catch you. Yep, see, there's another one, and then another thing you can do here too is you can actually just jump down right there. But I don't think, yeah, it's like, did I just go for the sprint? Yeah, see, I mess it up here. I should have just like went for it right there, but now I think this is why I end up getting hit. Yeah, because it's going to turn around the moment you walk out, so you have to let it go further if you're going to wait and be a little bit more patient like that. Keep it rolling. Yeah, see right here, I maybe could have made that. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, then you just have to go up around here. It's kind of, so, you know, this isn't even the most annoying one. Like, I remember like one of these, you have to, like, go up around it and then jump down on top. It's just like, what the heck, man? You're just like, oh my, you have to, like, jump down on top of the chariot. That one's, like, crazy. Okay, it's gonna turn around, and then it's gonna leave. Go last, and then go ahead and kill this dude, and you'll get your seal. Careful though, he will charge at you and then blink and dodge all your stuff, so. Ooh. Yeah, his moveset's pretty cool though, I have to say. Now you have your Dragon Communion Seal. Now we want to get the Claw Talisman, so we need to head over to Stormvale Castle, going from that side entrance, just on the off chance you don't have anything in here unlocked yet for some reason. Go ahead, run up here. Now keep in mind that I already have this door unlocked here, but you will need to go upstairs and get sucked into a room if you do not have this key. It's pretty straightforward though. It's only the first room when you walk up the stairs when you go the other direction. Then come around here, swing around. Go ahead, hop up here. Pick up that grace and then keep on rolling around. And we're going to come over here. And then we are going to hop on over this ledge and die. 100%, you definitely needed to do that. I don't even want to talk about how many times I've accidentally died going to get this talisman. But yeah, so then try to jump attack this bird. If you try to ignore the bird, I mean, if it's later on in the game, it's whatever. But like, if it's early on and this thing attacks you, it can like knock you off the ledge and do very inconvenient things. So I recommend just killing it. So yeah, then jump up here, come around, and then you're gonna want to kill these guys over here, because if you don't, they're gonna shoot you off of the ladder, which is very annoying. I guess if you have the poise, but yeah. Then come up here, and the Claw Talisman is gonna be right here at the top of these stairs. Claw Talisman is going to increase your jump attack damage by 15%, so it's pretty solid. Now we're going to want the Dragoncrest greatshield talisman. The reason why we pick up this talisman is because we are going to be using Howl Shabriri if you want, and this will help offset the amount of damage that it increases that you take. So from the Halig Tree sewer drainage channel, hop over here, start running around on these rooftops over these little branches here, and then it's going to be right down in this little drop down area. Just be careful of the pests. There's a bunch of those bug guys that shoot the pest threads at you, and they can jack you up. It's going to be in this chest right over here to the left. And it's really, really solid. It's 20% damage reduction, or physical damage reduction, so it's really overall a good talisman for the majority of the game. Next up, we're going to want the Lord of Blood's Exultation. This is going to give us a 20% attack power boost after we proc bleed, which is going to be pretty fast on most things. There's going to be a lot of things where you're going to jump on them once and immediately proc the bleed, so the follow-up attack is going to be even more deadly. So I'm a pretty big fan of it. You can also do things like Ritual Sword Talisman. You can find that in the Lux Ruins. It's over by, if you go to Altus Plateau, that Erdtree Grazing Hill, it's just the ruins that are like literally right over to the right of that. Like, it's very easy to get. You just have to walk down to those ruins, kill a very easy boss, like a Demi Queen thing. And then, but what that one will do is give you 10% increased attack power while your HP is at maximum. So if you're trying to go for more of like a one-shot build, that actually is pretty good. Unless you want to proc bleed with like Seppuku or something like that, because you can actually proc bleed with Seppuku, and then even though you're not getting the actual Seppuku bonus because they changed it, but you can still actually, that's how you can proc the bleed before you go into a boss room if you're trying to get the ultra bonk, you know. And then this is also really weird. So pretty much what you're doing is you're coming around here and you're looking for a lever. After you find the lever, you're going to go back to that room I was just in, and it's actually going to open up like an invisible part of the wall. So yeah, there's like, it's like a weird, really odd kind of doorway here. Yeah. But anyways, continue on, keep on keeping on. Come back around here, and yeah, see, so then the doorway is going to be open after you find the lever, and then you go through here, and it will take you down to the boss. And the boss isn't too bad either. Yeah. There you go. Very odd. Yeah. There we go. So now you have it opened up. Now we're going to fight Eskar here real fast. I don't think he does too much. I really don't remember him doing a whole lot of damage. Oh yeah, he just dies real fast. So boom, there you have it. Next up, we're going to get Blade of Mercy. You can get this really early into the DLC. However, make sure you get the white mask before going into the DLC. I think this is going to be the first DLC item I'm going to have you guys get. What it does is after you stagger something, that's considered a critical hit. After you do, like, you know, the parry, riposte, whatever, where you like stagger them, then you hit them in the chest with a hammer, that's going to increase your attack power now by 20% for around 20 seconds. So it's going to really play into the whole stagger bonk bonk kind of play style that we're going for here. Another option is the Ritual Sword Talisman. This will increase your attack power by 10% while you are at maximum HP. It's alright, but it is situational. But if you don't have access to the DLC yet or something like that, then you could go ahead and use this. Another thing is like Erdtree's Favor is good if you're struggling with equip load. I mean, really, this one is kind of a situational slot, because while it is very good to have the Blade of Mercy, some bosses you're not even going to really be able to stagger anyway. So, you know, there's plenty of things that you could also put in this slot if for some reason you do not have access to the DLC. We're going to be using the Rakshasa armor, 3 pieces of it, because it increases our damage by 2% per piece. And we're going to have a couple other items that are going to give us way more damage increase in terms of the armor. But for the Rakshasa set, so starting from the Shadow Keep entrance, I'm going to show you guys how to get all the way over to where you need to go. You're going to need to kill the Golden Hippopotamus, or you need to take the Church District and then work your way backwards so you can get out to this area. Take a little left here, go down these stairs. There's going to be some little dudes up top there. You know, just be careful to not get hit by those. And then there's going to be an invisible wall down here that you need to hit. Hit that invisible wall. You know, go ahead, go down the stairs. There's a coffin down here. And once you get to the coffin, it's going to take you out to this watering hole area. And now we're just going to make a run along like a cliffside. And be careful, because there are a bunch of those furnace giants out here. Well, I don't know if there's a bunch, but I know there's one that's going to get up here in a second and start trying, yeah, right there, start trying to attack you. So be careful. Because one blast from that, if you don't have your Shadow Tree Blessing up, can do quite a bit of damage like that. See? I almost died there. Oh, and then there's going to be some bug things. No big deal. You just run past them. Then you're going to want to jump down here and then swing a left. And then you're going to want to actually jump down on these other cliff ledges over here. Because you can see right over here, the Rakshasa location is going to be right down there. So, hippity hoppity. Oh my gosh. Running around like I got ADHD or something. What am I doing? That's okay. So then right here is going to be the Rakshasa armor location. Just kill the boss in here. Next up, we're going to be getting the Raptor feathers. So this is in the Sage's Cave. So to find this cave, it's actually very easy. You can go to the Erd Tree, Gazing Hill, Site of Grace, and Altus Plateau. It's right after you first get into Altus Plateau if you don't take the lift and you go through the cave. So if you took the lift, you just need to walk. You literally just need to go to the left. And then you're going to need to walk down by the tomb where you would come out if you took the cave. And then over to the left in a lake, you'll find the entrance to this cave. Now going through here, there's some invisible walls. It's nothing crazy. There are a bunch of skeletons in here, so be careful because they will kind of. I know, like in here, this is one downside to the build is you have this big hammer you're trying to swing in like this small tiny area, right? So. But there's quite a few items in here, actually. You also get the Raptor Talons in here, so I don't know if you guys ever like even need or want those things, but yeah. Oh my gosh. The plight of using a hammer. Ah. Yep. Oh, there we go. Got it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you got to use the little front flip attack. Okay. Then right here is another secret thing to get a stone sword key. Then we're just going to keep on going in. And then right here you have Dragon Wound Grease, and then you're going to have the Raptor Talons, and then you're going to have a Golden Great Arrow, and then there's a little bit further in here we will find our Raptor Feathers. Yeah. So jump across here, hit this wall, and then I believe this right here is where our Black Raptor Feathers are at. It's going to increase our jump attack damage by quite a bit, so it's definitely worth getting. So in the Mogwin Dynasty Coliseum, go ahead, just run right over here, and you will get invaded by a white mask guy. Keep in mind, if you kill Moog, these guys will not invade you, unfortunately, so you might have to go to the next one if you miss this. But you kill this guy, and then he will drop the white mask and increase our attack power by 10% whenever we cause bleeding to happen, which is super good. Alright, so now we want to grab Golden Vow. This is going to go from the Bridge of Iniquity. This is kind of the beginning of Mount Gelmer. We're going to take a nice little run here. There is going to be a invader, so be careful of that. But this is going to increase our damage by 15%, and it is going to increase our damage negation by 10%. So this is just a really solid buff to use overall. And if you can run faith in a build, it takes 25 faith for this. It's going to be pretty darn solid to use. All right, next up we're going to get Flame Grant Me Strength. It's over here in Caelid. So you just have to go run over to this fort, and it's going to be sitting in a kind of a weird spot over in between two of these catapult things. But it's a little bit of a run depending on what graces that you have open. But I believe the grace I went to was the closest one, if I'm not mistaken. So go ahead and make this little run here, and you don't even have to go into the fort, you just have to go around it. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase your fire damage by 20%, but it's also going to increase your physical damage. So that's the reason why we run it. We don't do any fire damage, but we do physical damage. So this is going to be another buff for our hammers, even though we don't get to use the other part of the effect. So I still think it's pretty darn good to use. So Howl of Shabriri, this one is kind of optional because it does increase the amount of damage you take by like 30%, but it does give you a 25% damage buff. If you want to actually use it multiple times and proc the madness, you could technically use the Black Dumpling Helm, but personally, since we're using the white mask, it's not really necessary. And I'm not really a fan of, spending that much time to get Madness to proc in order to get the Black Dumpling Helm, unless I'm mistaken, but I couldn't get the Black Dumpling Helm to proc until I actually procced Madness on myself, not just, cast it like with Shabriri. So we're going to come over here to this tower, and we are going to go up to the top of it. Watch out for the fire-eyed rats. They will jack your shit up if you're not paying attention. And then you also have to be a little careful about when you're running here, because you want to make sure you don't, obviously die to the madness effect of this tower. And there it be. Alright, so now we are going to go do a Putrid Avatar over in Caelid. So from the Third Church of Marika, you're going to want to run behind it. It's going to take us all the way over to the Beast Sanctum. And then we are going to make a little bit of a run. If you already have Fort Feroth unlocked, you can actually run from there. It's the minor Erd tree that's right next to Fort Feroth. So, yeah. So just come, wrap around down here. Be careful of the little guys. Make sure you don't get hit or just knocked off your horse or something dumb like that. There's also a golden seed over to the right if you don't have that. Run across the bridge. There's a big dragon on this bridge. It's like Elder Dragon Grail or something like that. But yeah, it's whatever. As long as you don't stop, he won't hit you. He's very, very slow. But it's that Erd. We're running straight over to that Erd tree right there. And the cool thing about this is it's kind of a 2-for-1 special. We actually get both of the tiers that we're going to want to use in this. One of them is the Stonebarbed Crack tier, and the other one is the Opaline Hardtear. One is going to increase how much stamina damage you do, so it's going to make it easier to stagger people. It's also going to make you do more whenever they're blocking. And then the other one is going to increase your damage negations by 15%, which is really, really good when combined with the Dragoncrest greatshield Talisman, and it makes it a lot easier to run Howl of Shabriri, because if you don't have both of these things, it becomes a little bit more difficult to run Howl of Shabriri because you start taking so much extra damage on top of the damage you're going to be taking from running 2 pieces of the Rakshasa set, or 3 pieces of the Rakshasa set, I should say. But yeah, so now you have your flask tiers. So when it comes to Ashes of War, we have a couple of options. The first one is Royal Knight's Resolve. So this one's pretty cool if you're really trying to do the big bonk, where you're just trying to hit them for an absolute ton of damage. What it's going to do is it's going to increase your weapon damage by 80% for specifically the next hit. So what you do is you pre-buff it, and then you try to hit the boss within that 10 seconds. Now, this can be a little difficult to use, simply because it only lasts for 10 seconds, so depending on where the boss placement is, you're going to have to be very careful about how you do the buff. When you do the buff, I found most of the time doing the buff at the door is not like, you have to actually go inside the fight and dodge a little bit to get it to work correctly. Otherwise, you'll just end up not like hitting the window and missing it. So be careful on that, but it's super duper good. It's definitely one of the better options, that is for sure. So going over to Mount Gelmer, you can see here I made the run from the Church of Igle, which is where the after you kill the Godskin Noble, you just have to spend a couple Stone Sword keys, make this run. There is actually a way to skip this if you can do the jump on the bridge to the right of the Temple of Igle that opens up the shortcut to the prayer room. You actually can jump on that right wheel, but I failed the jump 500 times, so I was just like, alright, whatever. But yeah, there's your Royal Knight's Resolve. And if you don't have this open, it also opens up kind of like a little pseudo shortcut into the manor itself. So that's pretty cool as well. So now we're going to get kind of a 2-for-1 special here. So the other option that I actually like for the Ashes of War is Braggarts Roar. So what this does is it increases the damage of the weapon by 10%. You can put this on both weapons, so you can get a 10% damage increase to both weapons. And it also gives you a 10% damage negation buff, which also stacks, and you can put it on both weapons. So that means that you can get 20% damage negation and then 10% increased damage on each weapon. So that's pretty cool. So you come over here, we want to do Rise Amulet because you get it off of killing this guy. Now, you want to be careful because if you don't buy the amulet and you don't unlock being able to buy Prawn from him, you're not going to be able to get this later on. And this is one of the best damage mitigation consumables. It increases your physical damage mitigation by 15% for 60 seconds. So if you're struggling on a boss, having a lot of trouble dying to it, this is something you definitely should be using in addition to the Dragoncrest greatshield Talisman, and you'll notice a massive reduction or massive increase in your defenses. But once you kill him, as long as the Prawn's unlocked, you'll be able to take his bearing to the Twin Maidens and buy the Prawn there. Now, when it comes to what type of weapon do we want to make the Giant Crushers, you actually have some options, and it's going to really just depend on your playstyle. So I actually made them bleed because colossal weapons get very large amounts of bleed application. So I thought that was pretty cool. I noticed I do maybe 1-2 jump attacks. One jump attack, it just depends on the enemy. On New Game Plus 3, it's currently taking me around like 2 jump attacks, and then I'm proccing bleed on things. So I liked it. I thought it was pretty fun to proc bleed. Also, you can make it an occult weapon. It does take the bleed away, but if you get a high, like 99 strength, 99 arcane, occult Giant Crusher, that actually has the highest attack rating, I think maybe even in the game. I don't know, but I know it's the highest version of at least the Giant Crusher that I've seen. I have no idea why Heavy does less, but Heavy's better earlier technically if you just want to go pure strength. But once you get like later on in the game, yeah, going Occult is actually going to give you more damage. Even though it only has a B strength scaling, it adds a B arcane scaling, so then you get to scale from 2 stats, which ultimately causes it to do more damage. And I believe it also has a slightly higher base damage as well, because for some reason when you make it heavy, it like reduces its base damage by 60. I think their idea was, oh, well, it's going to scale, you know, yada yada, because it's going to go up to S or something. But yeah, it didn't end up working out, I think, the way From Software intended. So yeah, that's pretty odd. But yeah, so my recommendations would be, you know, go bleed. Oh, another thing you can do too here is you also can go Frost. You really can go any status effect you want. Frost I don't think is bad either. But currently I'm using bleed just because I combine it with Whiteface Vari Hat. That gives an extra 20% attack power, and then Lord of Blood's Exultation also gives another 20% attack power. So I have a bunch of bleed effects. You'll have to keep that in mind whenever you're making the build if you do make adjustments like that, and you'll have to swap out the talismans as well if you aren't going to end up doing the bleed. But I think there's a lot of power to be had from doing the bleed build in terms of all the combos you can do with talismans and whatnot. Alright guys, so now I'm going to show you guys how to do the buff combo. So you can start with Golden Vow, then you can move to Flame, grant me strength. This is going to give you, I think, total like 35% increased damage so far just from these two. Howl Shabriri is going to up that by another 25%. Now, right after that, this is the technical part, is putting on your weapon buffs. So you need to remember that you need to two-hand the left-hand weapon, right? And then you need to apply the buff. Then you need to go back into your power stance where you're just holding both of them, and then you apply the right-hand buff, because when you're power stancing, it defaults to using the right-hand special attack when you activate it. The reason for this is because the moment you sheath a weapon, you lose the buff. So whenever you're power stancing and you activate the right hand one, you never sheath your left hand weapon. But if you try to activate it to do the left hand one, you have to two-hand it, which sheaths the right hand weapon, making you lose your buff. Right? So then we do this. And then also, if you're doing Royal Knight's Resolve, I recommend buffing that in the fight. Yeah, because Braggarts is going to have a 60-second duration. Royal Knight's Resolve only has a 10-second, so depending on the boss placement, especially if there's like a cutscene and stuff like that, you can lose the Royal Knight's Resolve like instantly. So you have to be very careful and mindful of how you're going about applying the buff, but it does make for one very satisfying big bonk. Alright, now we are going to talk about some spirit summons. When it comes to spirit summons, there's 2 recommendations I have. One's going to be the Mimic Tier, the other one's going to be Black Knife Tiche. Now, I didn't realize it, but Black Knife Tiche was bugged, so that explains why I didn't feel like it was doing a whole lot of damage. It was very odd to me, but then when I went and I rewatched some of the fights, I realized, oh wow, yeah, it was actually healing the boss the whole time. I just wasn't paying attention, I guess, so that's kind of interesting. But so Mimic Tier is going to copy your whole entire build, which is really good because you're using Bleed Giant Crusher, so he's going to help you proc your bleed faster. Not only that, since he does copy your stats, he is going to have a lot more health than what other like Spirit Ashes are going to have. And then when it comes to the Black Knife Tiche, that one's really good because it does like 10% of their health every time it does a special attack is this burn. So it's like insane, honestly, against some bosses. Now, to get the Black Knife Tiche, you have to do the whole entire Ranny quest line. And then you have to go into the Everjail over in southwestern Lernia, because once you do that quest line long enough, it'll like teleport you there to where you can actually get to that place, and then you can finally get to the Everjail, and then you can get the Black Knife Tiche. But yes, but the Mimic Tear is going to be a little bit easier to get because it's really just a run, so I'm going to show you how to get that one. And honestly, the Mimic Tear is still, I think Black Knife Tiche and Mimic Tear are very similar in power levels, just in a different way. But whenever you summon the Mimic Tear for this boss fight, just make sure that you're naked, and then it'll make the boss fight easy because it copies, exactly what you put on when you walk into the fight. And then whenever you summon the Mimic Tear to use it in boss battles, make sure you summon it power stance, because it'll start off just having both the hammers in its hand. I notice if I start off with it, using a seal, it'll just sit there and cast buffs that it's already cast. So sometimes the AI on the Mimic Tear can be dumb. So I just recommend just start it off power stance, and you'll see it does a decent amount of damage. I have a clip coming up after this of one of the boss fights of the Putrescent Knight getting just kind of slapped by the Mimic Tear. But same thing will be applied to Black Knife Tiche now that that bug was fixed. So yeah, when it comes to running to the Mimic Tear after you fight the Mimic Tear and all that, there's not really a whole lot of things to worry about. Just don't die to those spikes, and then make sure you have a Stone Sword key to open up this area right here. So I believe it just takes, I believe it just takes one. So that's how you get your Mimic Tear. Alright, so when it comes to stat priority and selection, the main thing you're going to need to start out is 60 strength, right? Then you're going to need 55 endurance. Then after that, you'd want to pump up vigor. You want to make sure you get to 33 strength so you can cast all of the incantations that we want to cast. 25 to start if you don't want to use Howl of Shabriri. And then you want to pump up Arcane to help with the bleed. Right, so if you're level 200, you're looking at like 60 strength, 55 endurance, 50 vigor, 50 arcane, 33 faith, right? But keep in mind, as you're leveling up, if you're trying to work towards this build, you can just use one Giant Crusher, and then you're not going to need to have your endurance up so high. The reason why our endurance is so high is mainly because we need the equip load to be able to wield 2 Giant Crushers. Alternatively, you can use talismans like Erdtree's Favor. You can also do things like Radahn's Great Rune. That stuff all increases equip load. You also have the Great Jar's Arsenal that also increases equip load early on if you're struggling to be able to wield both of them, because these are pretty heavy weapons. You need to have, I believe, at least 112 to 120 equip load, somewhere in there, for all of this to be a medium load on you. And then if you want to wear heavy armor on top of that instead of like the raptor feathers and the white mask, you're going to need to have like even more equip load. So that's going to be pretty important. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you're scaling your arcane, because that's going to increase how much bleed damage you get. It's going to really help your bleed scale. But at the same time, arcane is not, while it is important, it's not as important as the strength, because you can do damage without the arcane. The arcane is more of like the cherry on the top, because the moment you proc the bleed, you get 20% attack power from Lord of Blood's Exultation. You get 10% attack power from the white mask, and all that stuff is going to affect just your regular damage too. It's not just going to increase your bleed damage or something like that. So you're still going to do a lot of damage even with a lower arcane. So the main stats to focus on would be strength and endurance, and just getting those to where they need to be, and then your vigor to make sure you're not just getting one shot by enemies, and then you can move on to the other ones. Getting to 25 faith isn't a bad idea either, because you won't be able to use Howl Shabriri until you get to 33 faith, but you will be able to use Golden Vow. So, being able to use Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength is pretty solid, because those are really big damage buffs to do. So if it's not a whole lot of trouble for you, getting to 25 faith is going to be good. And then later on, you can get to 33 faith if you really want to use Howl Shabriri after you get all your other stats up. But yeah, so that's going to be it for stats. And then when it comes to the Great Runes, another thing is Godric's Great Rune, I think, is very good for this build, because you need so many different stats. Since you want Arcane, Strength, and Endurance, this gives you +5 to all stats, which is pretty nice. So I would recommend Godric's Great Rune. Then once you get to like a really high level and you just don't really need to worry about that anymore, then you can just go to like Radahn's Great Rune, and then that'll give you like a bunch of equip load. stuff like that, or even more God's Great Rune if you just want to try to increase your health by even more. So, alright, so now I just wanted to talk a little bit about the weaknesses of this build, just so you know what to expect. So, one of the weaknesses is when you use like Royal Knight's Resolve. Obviously, if you don't do it right or you don't do it fast enough, right? Like you can see here, I just applied it like mid-fight, but like applying it to both mid-fight can be kind of hard. So you're really only going to get like maybe one hit, and then you can probably apply it to your right-hand weapon more practically. And there are going to be moments in time that you can still apply it to both. But you'll see here, like with how random, especially in the DLC, the bosses like attacks are, because they'll like be attacking your tier or your Spirit Ashe, and then all of a sudden just decide, hey, I'm going to turn and attack you once, right? So it makes the windows a little bit hard. The other thing too is, as you can see here, when things move like very randomly, like kind of like what this Divine Beast guy does here, it can make it kind of hard to do attacks, especially if they fly up into the air, right? Like see, it's just constantly moving nonstop, and not only that, it's up in the air, so it makes it even harder to hit. So you have to like wait till it lands and just kind of time your time your strikes and your opportunities, but you'll be able to kill bosses just fine. But after that, I mean, the build's pretty solid. Like you saw in the very first clip in the video, I just crushed Moog. And then right here, you'll see the Mimic tier doing a little bit of work here. So if you want to just kind of see, like look at how much damage he's doing in the Putrescent Knight, 3,300, right? So that's why I like the Mimic tier, and he's also stacking up bleed the whole time on this guy. So he's gonna help you out. Like he's gonna help you proc the bleed, which is pretty nice. I think this fight was on a new game +2. But still, it's still pretty solid. But pretty solid damage. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Try to put as much information as I can on the build in here. So anyways, thanks for watching guys. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.